What's the aim of a lot of people are worried, of course, concerned about policing and police reform, and there's all kinds of debates, some of them very bitter about where to go from here. Everyone agrees that things have to change. There's no agreement on what should change and how. What's the contribution of the project? Why do something called the policing project? If all goes well, what do you hope is going to happen?
So we hope to bring what we call democratic policing or front-end accountability to policing. So I've taught constitutional law and I've taught criminal procedure for years, and back in 2006, a little light bulb went off over my head, which was that when we talk about accountability in policing, we mean something different than in all the rest of government. So in policing, when we talk about accountability, which you hear about constantly now, mostly people want to either bring criminal charges against an officer who's done something, or civil rights action, or the Department of Justice go after them, or a civilian review board, body cameras. They're all forms of what we call back-end accountability, which is something's gone wrong. We want to know whose fault it was. But in most of government, that is not how we think about accountability. In most of government, accountability happens on the front end. So if you talk to a con law professor about accountability and how the system works, it's all about democratic participation, about our lawfully elected representatives making decisions to regulate things up front, administrative law also, with transparency, with public input, and once there is front-end accountability, once you have clear rules up front, it's easier to have it on the back end because you've told police officers and police departments, policing agencies, what you want out of them. And so our goal is to bring front-end accountability to policing. If you go to our website, which is policingproject.org, there's a report up there called Changing the Law to Change Policing, in which I and a number of other folks who work on an ALI project about policing have lists of statutes that should be adopted at the federal, state, and local levels to bring front-end accountability to policing. And we also work on what we call reimagining public safety, which is this idea that you hear in the defund movement, which is that officers are asked to do way too many things, and things for which they are not trained. Police are trained mostly to use force and coercion and enforce the law and about what the law is. And so it's not a surprise that when you call the police, you get force and law. But if there's a substance abuse problem or a homelessness problem or even traffic enforcement, I have a paper online at SSRN called Disaggregating the Policing Function, which sort of takes apart what the cops do all day long and asks, is the cop the best person to do this? The answer is often no. So we're holding some convenings with folks from the defund movement and trying to figure out a way forward. Because the irony is, as much as the police feel under attack right now, they agree with this proposition. They too feel that they've been forced to do too much. But I'm gonna actually say a word about how this relates to the book. Watch me do this. Here we go. You know, we're about to start a litigation project. I always thought we would litigate, but we've just been so busy doing other things that we hadn't, but we're about to. And the goal is nothing less than to change constitutional law, because constitutional law doesn't ask a question that I think it should around policing, which is that under the Constitution, judges are always asking, you know, what does the Fourth Amendment say about this? Should the police have gotten a warrant? You know, should there be criminal charges? Did this violate, you know, the people's constitutional rights? But what judges ought to ask is, were the police authorized to do this in the first place? Did anybody explicitly authorize the use of facial recognition, license plate readers, cell site simulators, all these surveillance technologies, certain tactics that the police use, programmatic stop and frisk? And the reason I bring that up here is because what makes a really good lawyer, I'm curious if you push back on this, but this is true of the good lawyers I know, is the ability to take the law just as they learned it, just as the cases are, and push it in a direction that they think the world needs to go or their clients' interests lead them. And that's the talent in the law. That's the thing that exam taking tests very often, which is, are you able to take the raw materials that we were teaching in class and from them construct something novel, and in a way that it doesn't look novel, because judges don't like to do anything that they haven't done 100 times before. You know, Justice Cardozo was a genius at this, as you know. It would look like nothing had changed when everything had changed. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do with our litigation project. And that's what good lawyers do. And that is the set of skills that I think the first year is all about trying to pick up. I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah, I think that's great. So congrats on the project. It's really important.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.